I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting of Thursday, December 5th to order. If everybody would please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Michelle, could we have roll call, please?
Dagny Stapleton. Here. Paula Levis.
Here.
Charles Reno. Here. Kathleen Taylor. Here. Kevin Weisky.
Here.
Jason Woosley is absent. Doug Kaufman.
Here. All right, next on the agenda is public comments. This item is for either general public comments or for public comments on an action item. If commenting on an action item, please place the agenda item on the request to speak form. Do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
Seeing and hearing none, I'll close public comments. I'd like to have approval for the minutes of November 7th, 2013.
So move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second to approval?
I'll second. Commissioner Stapleton.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And abstain?
Abstain.
Commissioner
Okay.
Olivas abstain.
Commissioner Taylor abstain.
And 2 abstentions. Next on the agenda is a City Council liaison report.
I have no report tonight for him.
All right. Unfinished business, we have LDC 10-00030, Evans Ranch PUD amendment. Would the applicant please come to the podium?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Tom Gallagher with Summit Engineering Corporation, representing the owners of the Evans Ranch property. First of all, I'd like to thank the staff for working with us for the past 2 months. I'm sure you've probably seen enough of us briefly while we were here previously. But I'd like to thank Vern and Mr. Shipman and Cadence. They all were extremely pleasant to work with, and we worked through all the issues, and we agree completely with the staff report and anything else that's associated with this project. We feel we've resolved everything. If there's any questions for us, one of the owners, Mr. Listener's here with me, and we'd be glad to address them.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Staff?
Good evening, Vern Close, Senior Planner. As you all know, this is an amendment to the Evans Ranch PUD. It's a request to add a little over 40 acres and 123 units to the Evans Ranch project. This is the Evans Ranch project, and this is the 40-acre section to be added to the PUD. In addition to that minor amendment to the project, the applicant and staff worked to work out issues related to provision of fire and park services for the project. There's one of the amendments to the PUD is to allow for development agreements to set up how those things would work in the future. The memo that I sent out with the staff report explains all the changes to the staff report, which, again, to the PUD, and then also changes to the existing conditions, which were minor, basically trigger numbers. And then also a supplemental memo that I sent out this week related to the parks agreement. And what we did is we're recommending that that language be added to the end of the agreement to allow for a remedy should the developer default on provisions within the PUD. they would have 15 working days to address those. And also that same language or the same timeframe would apply to the fire services agreement portion, which is also part of the amendments. Staff received no correspondence, no calls on this project, and it's been in for several years, and finally we're getting to the point where it's ready to go. Staff's recommending approval subject to the conditions as amended and also the amendments in the memos that were provided to you tonight. Just wanted to point out this one other thing. Oh yeah, all the changes are in the memo here, and then for the other two projects, those there are supplemental memos for those that were handed out to you. That concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Vern. Okay, commissioners, could we have disclosures? Commissioner Reno?
Received emails.
Commissioner Dagny?
Commissioner
Stapleton?
Dagny, Stapleton, no disclosures.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Weisky, I have driven by the site.
No disclosures.
Commissioner Olivas, I have driven by the site.
And Commissioner Kaufman, I also driven by the site, and I did see emails from the staff. So I'll open it for questions. Commissioner Stapleton.
Yeah, could we start, Vern, could you go over the changes in the memo? Just so that we have an idea. Thank you.
The one that you received in your packet or the one that you just received this week?
Well,
Both? I can go through both.
I mean, I meant the one that we received this week, but if you want to do both, it would be helpful. I mean, I went through this, but it's sort of like an amendment of an amendment of an amendment, so I don't know if that would be helpful to the other commissioners. But at minimum for me, this one that just came out this week. Thanks.
Okay, I'll do those. Which is this memo right here, that's what's on top of the information I gave you today. Basically, the change in this memo is we just added development and maintenance to the parks agreement portion. The acreage and the trail system portion, about halfway down the page, that was contained in the original memo, so that did not change. On the second page, the only thing that was added is the last bullet point, which is related to when the developer, if they fail to execute the development agreement for parks and prior to the first final map, or if they default on any of the provisions in that, then they have 15 days to remedy that. And if they don't, then we have the ability to stop issuing permits for the project. We don't anticipate that occurring, but that was something that legal staff wanted to add in lieu of having the agreement approved concurrent with the PUD amendment. That's kind of the new thinking on what we're doing with PUDs, but at this point, this one was set up in a different manner. So to address that issue, we believe that we have essentially the same protection as having the development agreement approved up front with the PUD, but with this language, with the default language, we believe we have the same protection as far as if they fail to perform on what they're supposed to do based on the provisions of the PUD and those amendments. So that's basically what the change was. It was we just left that out because it was in the public facilities agreement, and we went, oh wait, we need to add that one too. So that's basically what happened. Any other questions?
Commissioners, before we go on, I missed a step here. Is there anybody in the audience that'd like to make a public comment on this action item? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public comments and bring it back to the commissioners for questions. Commissioner Reno.
Yeah, Vern, I have a question. So we switched from the 1400th lot to the 1700th lot for having to create the fire station, right? The 7,200 square foot fire station.
Actually, that's not correct. In the existing PUD, the day that this went to the Planning Commission 5 years ago, a letter was submitted by the fire department which changed that number from 14 to 1,700, and that's contained in the PUD. So basically, it's
housekeeping.
it's fixing what should have been fixed when the PUD was originally done. Yes.
One thing it doesn't address, though, I read through the letter from the fire department from 2008. It says on the 1,000th residential lot, they need to dedicate a 2.5 acre site. And looking at this, the amendments, it doesn't, well, you know, this new changes here, it doesn't address the 1,000th property, nor does it says it needs a 2.5 acre site. And this says the new changes are up to a 2.5 acre site. And there's a big difference between up to and a 2.5 acre site.
Well, again, those changes have been reviewed by fire, and 2.5 acres is the outside size of a site that would be necessary, and that would be based on if it had not good topo on the site. Roughly speaking, a 2 acre site or in that range is more than adequate. But
well, I'd think even a 1 acre site.
So the language was changed so that the fire staff has the ability to require up to 2.5 acres. But if they don't need it, then that's why the language was modified from requiring a 2.5 to an up to 2.5 site.
Yeah, I guess why did it get switched to being up to 2.5 acre? Did the fire department request that, or just the staff, or just negotiations?
The applicant requested that, and the fire staff that's acceptable to fire staff.
That is acceptable.
Yes. Okay. I believe the fire station site, just as an example, the one down in Damani Ranch that's under construction I believe it's just a little over 2 acres or right in that range. So,
what about dedicating the site prior to at the 1,000th residential lot?
Again, that will be addressed in the fire services agreement. And
Okay.
again, the fire station isn't required to be constructed until the 1,700 unit. And again, the 1,000th unit portion, I'm not remembering.
It's in this
that.
letter here. I'll read it to you. Prior to or with the recordation of the final map of the 1,000 residential lot, the fire station site will be dedicated to the city of Reno. Both the new fire station and the fire apparatus trucks with equipment shall be provided prior to the recordation of the final map of the 1,700th residential lot. So I guess, I mean, we're looking, 700 lots later, and where my thought is the city should get their property dedicated because they might get the right site. And when you start to have 1,700 more lots on there, you may not get the most optimal site that you want.
Well, again, the fire services agreement allows the site to be not even on Evans Ranch, in Evans Ranch. It's the idea. Part of this amendment was to allow a little bit more flexibility in where the station might go so that it can better serve the area instead of just putting it right in the middle of Evans Ranch. So it provides a better coverage area for the existing services that are up there. So again, fire has reviewed this. In fact, that's why we had the delay of 2 or 3 months to get to this point, and fire is entirely satisfied with the modifications that you see before you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Commissioner Stapleton, I want to follow up on Commissioner Reno's questions on the fire agreement. And I'm wondering if you can clarify, I don't quite understand in the amendments, on page 78, it says that either the developer will execute the public safety facility agreement or submit a comprehensive fire impact fee program. So then it goes into the details of what the public safety facility agreement would be. But is that still optional? It looks like it is. It's on page 78 there of the, which is actually page 5, I think, of the staff report.
So you're looking at the top of, right underneath the first paragraph under public safety facility. That basically what this allows is that at this point, we have no impact fee system. If an impact fee system for fire services comes into effect sometime during the life of this project, then they have the ability to switch over to that. But at this point, they can do the fire safety agreement, or they can opt to use impact fees.
Okay, so they can't elect to use impact fees unless the policy at the city changes and their impact fees put in place.
Yeah, impact fee, we have to have an impact fee ordinance in place for them to be able to do that. So the idea is that it just gives them a little bit more flexibility, but it still, protects the city as far as providing the service that's required for the project.
Okay, I don't know if that's totally clear because it looks like it's optional and then if there's nothing for the second option, but if that's the intent, then that makes sense to me, so thank you.
Commissioner Weisky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If questions are done, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Thank you. In the case of LDC 10-00030 Evan Ranch PUD, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to recommend that City Council approve the zoning map amendment and the amendment to the Evans Ranch PUD handbook, subject to Condition A and subject to amended conditions that have been provided to us tonight. And I can make all of the findings.
I have a motion.
Commissioner Olivas, I'll second, and I can make all the findings.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? So it passed 6-0. Thank you. Good luck on your project. The next item on the agenda is for public hearings, LDC 14-00018, Rock Center variance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Andy Durling with Wood Rogers, here representing the Regional Transportation Commission tonight. The request we have before you tonight is a variance for two properties located on the northwest corner of Rock Boulevard and South McCarran Boulevard. The project site is the Quick Stop Market and the associated retail shops there on the corner. This project, the variance associated with this project is associated with the widening of South McCarran Boulevard that the RTC is currently underway in the design and right-of-way acquisition phases for. Phase 1 was completed for Southeast McCarran from Virginia Street to Mariloma. This is part of Phase 2, which is Mariloma to Gregg Street. As part of the project, right-of-way is necessary to be acquired for the widening. In this case in particular, there's a small amount of widening or right-of-way acquisition that's necessary. It's identified in the green here in the overhead. For these two properties, it's approximately 700 square feet. With that acquisition, it kind of triggered a situation where we're taking out landscaping that is both within the right-of-way, which is identified in red here in the graphic, as well as the landscaping within the green area. So when that happens, the property then becomes non-conforming because of the landscape loss. This project is neighborhood commercial zoned. It's required to have 20% landscaping. With the reduction in the amount of landscaping due to the widening, it goes to about 18.5%, somewhere around there. Additionally, because we are acquiring some property to modify the right turn pocket onto Rock Boulevard, this location here gets narrowed down from a required 10 feet to 7.7 feet. So the variance that we have before you is for the total overall landscaping for the project, for these two properties themselves, as well as narrowing that frontage landscaping from 10 feet to 7.7 feet. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We are in agreement with staff's recommendations, including the memo that was provided to you that modifies conditions 2 and 3. The modifications are necessary because building permits are not required as part of roadway projects. Rather, they would get the contractor would get an encroachment permit, so tying it to the encroachment permit is more appropriate in this case. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Staff?
Good evening again, Vern Close, Senior Planner. Mr. Durling provided a good overview of what the project is requesting. Staff believes that all the findings necessary to make the for the variance can be made, and we are recommending approval subject to the conditions with the modifications to switch building to encroachment permits in conditions 2 and 3 as contained in the memo that you received tonight. I received a couple of phone calls on this, just informational. Basically, with the reduction in the landscaping here, that was off-site, and it was counted as part of the site's landscaping, and it was not anticipated at that time, which was about 10 years ago, that the street would need to be widened, and it is. Also, the area in here that's being reduced to from 10 to 7, just a little over 7 feet, is about 140 feet in width or length, and it's minor, and there really is no other way for them to make up for the loss of this landscaping. Also, the capacity improvements that will be provided with the roadway widening are a benefit to the public, and that was part of the reasoning that staff used to support the project. Be happy to answer any questions. That concludes my presentation.
Thanks, Vern.
Thank you.
I'll open public comments on this item. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to comment on this item? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close public comments, bring it back to the commissioners for questions, or bring it back to the commissioners for disclosures.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Weisky, I drove by and visited the site, and I received the amended conditions 2 and 3.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Taylor, both RTC and NDOT are clients of mine at Atkins, but we are not involved in this project, and there's no conflict of interest, and I have been by the site.
Thank you.
Commissioner Olivas, I've visited the site and received the email with the change in conditions.
Commissioner Stapleton?
I drove by the site. I received the email. Thank you.
Drove by the site and received the emails. Commissioner Reno.
And Commissioner Kaufman, I also have been by the site and received the emails. So with that, I'll open it to commissioners for questions.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, John Shipman, Deputy City Attorney. Yeah, Ms. Taylor, Commissioner Taylor, could you just one more time just articulate on the record what the relationship is again, maybe a little bit more, just so I want to make sure that it's a proper disclosure.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
My company, Atkins, is an engineering firm, and we do work with both NDOT and RTC, but this is not one of our projects. It's not on our radar. We have no knowledge of it, and we're not doing any work with it.
Okay, so you're currently not engaged on this project?
No.
Okay, thank you.
With that, any questions? Motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Weisky?
Thank you. In the case of LDC 14-00018, Rock Center variance, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the variance subject to conditions, including modifications to conditions 2 and 3 that we received in a memo, and I can make all of the findings.
I'll second that motion. Commissioner Reno.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by aye.
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 All opposed? Passed 6-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is LDC 14-00017, Golden Hills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, again, Andy Durling with Wood Rogers, this time representing Lennar Communities. Do I get theme music this time? The request we have before you tonight for Golden Hills 2C. This is Village 2C of the overall Golden Hills development. Village 2C is the final phase of the 317-lot Golden Hills development. Golden Hills is located just northeast of Demonte Ranch High School, sits back behind Rio Wrangler there off of Macaulay Ranch Parkway. I keep messing with Michelle's Zoom. Village 2C is comprised of 62 lots. It is located in the north east corner of Golden Hills. Villages 1A, 1B, and 2A are predominantly built out. 2B is currently under construction. 2C was mass graded previously. The reason that we're here tonight for the tentative map is that the previous tentative map did expire prior to Village 2C being recorded. So this is identical to what was previously approved, and actually final permit, final plans and everything had been previously submitted but not finalized. We are in agreement with staff's recommendations in the staff report, in addition to those identified in the memo that you received. The memo proposes deleting conditions 8, 9, and 10, which deal with cooperative planning. This is due to the fact that Village 2C is not subject to cooperative planning. So those were older conditions with the overall Golden Hills that really dealt with mostly Village B1 there, or 1B that you see in the overhead. They do not pertain to Village 2C. Additionally, we had some modifications that we worked out with staff on condition 13 that we are content with. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Staff?
Vern Close, Senior Planner. As Mr. Durling indicated, this is basically a redo of the expired portion of the tentative map. It is also for cluster development, which allows them to reduce the lot sizes below the minimum 15,000 square feet. All of the amenities that were required with the original cluster development have been installed, or a majority of them have. The only thing that remains to be done is the trail system along the north and east sides, and those would be constructed with this phase of the project. Staff believes that all the findings can be made. We had one call on this, and it was not really related to the tentative map other than what are the prices of the homes going to be. So that wasn't really relevant to what we're reviewing here tonight. Staff is recommending approval. Again, conditions 8, 9, and 10 are related to cooperative planning. Property to the north is in the city, the property to the east is in the city, the property to the northeast at the corner there is in the sphere of influence, and therefore and it's not platted, therefore the cooperative planning criteria do not apply to this portion of the project, and that's why staff recommended deletion of conditions 8, 9, and 10. Also, condition number 13 is related to the potential to add a turn pocket on Yeehaw Way at Rio Wrangler. The condition as modified allows staff to get the design as appropriate, and it also allows us to get security for the improvement should it be necessary, while not requiring the applicant to provide extra bonding. The public improvement bonding on the subdivision would be held. It could be reduced down to the minimum, which is 20%, and if the improvement is necessary, they would not be released until that time is done, or till the improvement's done. Also, what it does is it puts it on the developer to request that to be released, and instead of staff trying to track building permits, which is difficult over a long period of time. So staff believes that this was a good compromise on the condition, and both sides are getting essentially what they need. With that, I'll conclude my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Vern. I'll open public comments. Is there anybody in the audience that'd like to speak on this project? Did you fill out a?
I did not.
Okay.
Shall I
After
do-
you're done speaking, please state your name and if you'd fill out a request to speak form from Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can
Go
speak
ahead.
now? All right, thank
You
you
have
so
3
much.
minutes.
All right. I actually have questions, maybe. I
Okay.
think the concern that the person maybe who called him was.
Can you
when
state
they-
your name for the record, please? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Thank you.
Nikki Hertzler. Nikki Hertzler. I live at the end of Village 1A, and our concern is, are those houses going to be somewhat similar? When he says cluster, the lot sizes are going down. We're concerned about our house values going down with those lot sizes. So that's our concern. Are they going to be similar to what is already there in 1A and 2A? Okay. Our other concern is too that the construction workers in 2B are cutting the fence and letting the horses in again. And I'm speaking out of ignorance because maybe this is not the forum to bring this up, but so if so, then I apologize, but those are a couple of our concerns.
Okay. We'll try and get those questions answered for you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? With that, I'll close the public comments. I'll bring it back to the commissioners for disclosures, please. Commissioner Reno.
No disclosures. I'm aware of the site, but no disclosures. So.
Commissioner Stapleton has no disclosures.
Commissioner Olivas.
Commissioner Olivas, no disclosures.
Commissioner Taylor, no disclosures.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Weisky, I was sitting on the Ward 2 Neighborhood Advisory Board when this first came through in 2004 and saw this project, but we didn't have any voting rights at that time, so I don't feel that I have any need to recuse myself unless, of course, Mr. Shipman says differently. Thank you.
And Commissioner Kaufman, I have been by this site. So with that, I'll bring it back to the commissioners for questions.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Reno, quick question, Vern, or maybe Andy Derling, you can answer this. Andy, in 2004, when this came up, this cluster development, was it for SF9 or was it for SF15? I've been a little confused in here because it sounds like it was for 9, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, the property is zoned SF15, so for 15,000 square foot lots. So the density is based on that, but the lots have been clustered to retain some natural features and provide common area open space, which predominantly consists of the improved drainage way down the center, which was already completed, as Vern mentioned. It's the drainage facility itself has been completed, but it's also been landscaped and trails and things like that. So those common area features have been completed. It's zoned SF15. We are using SF9 lot standards for the setbacks. The lots in this Village 2C range from 9,600 square feet up over 15,000 square feet. I think, and the way that the original tentative map was written is it was conditioned that any lots that were less than 15,000 square feet used an SF9 setback standard. Anything over 15,000 square feet used the SF15 standard. We only have, I think, 7 or 8 lots that are over 15,000 square feet in this phase, so it was just easier to say we're using the SF9 standards for setbacks. But all of the lots exceed 9,000 square feet. I'll add, too, that looking at the graphic on the overhead, the lot sizes and configurations are consistent with the rest of the Golden Hills development. This is, although it's cluster development, it's the entire Golden Hills subdivision is cluster development from the sense that it uses a little bit smaller lots in order to have those common area elements.
Perfect, thank you.
Commissioner Stapleton.
Thanks. I have a question for staff. I have a question on the Washoe County School District. It says that in order to serve the additional students that will be generated from this project, they would possibly bus to other schools and have portable classrooms. I know one of the findings we have to meet is that there's adequate services and infrastructure to serve the project. Does that count, the students being busing? I mean, I guess if the school district is comfortable with it, but can you speak to that?
Vern Close, Senior Planner. In instances where school capacity might be a little bit lagging in certain areas, that's a standard method that the school district uses. I can think of a number of projects where they've indicated that. I know there are portables at Damani Ranch High School. There's portables at McQueen High School. There's portables at some of the elementary schools. Again, that's a method that they would utilize until they get funding to build more schools. But they've always indicated that they can serve the school population as necessary, and those are some of the options that they would utilize.
So there isn't a plan for a new school. There's hope for funding for a new school. And in the meantime, they're satisfied with busing and that will meet the need generated by this project?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other commissioners have questions? Vern, while you're up there, I have a question, or it might be for the applicant. Question was asked, are these going to be similar type houses? Similar type decor on the outside? Obviously a little smaller, but
I don't know what the lots or the house sizes are, or what they are going to be constructed as. The developer is here. They could answer those questions, and that is not something that we would look at specifically. We're looking at the lot sizes and the zoning and the other standards, the architecture and the size of the houses. That's up to the developer, but they could possibly answer that for you.
And this is basically a tentative map. They will still have to come before us for a final map.
No, they won't. They will have to submit. It's an administrative review for the final map, but they have to meet all the conditions and all the standards that are related to this particular development. It's a cluster development, so the minimum lot sizes are 9,000, and the setbacks that go with them. But again, as far as we have articulation standards related to, you can't have the same house plan either adjacent to or across the street from another house which has the same elevation. We have those sorts of standards, but we do not have specific standards related to the minimum size or the price range of the houses in a subdivision.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Stapleton.
I have two more questions. Do we, usually when we see a tentative map, do we get to see drawings or any type of, architecturals or anything like that? I just know that one of the findings is we have to look at, compatibility with surrounding uses and things like that. Is that common with a tentative map that we?
In a tentative map such as this, that's up to the applicant to submit them. If it was in a PUD, and there were standards related to that, they would have to either provide those with the tentative map, or when they come in with their building permit, show how they're meeting those particular standards, like Damani Ranch or Bella Vista, Somerset. Those types of PUDs have architectural standards that they have to basically meet. It's like the code for their development, but this one does not have that. So if the applicant does not choose to put those forward with a tentative map, that's not necessarily a reason for us to approve or deny the project. The compatibility issue would be the lot sizes are the same, they have the same setbacks, the same building height, those sorts of things that would make them, you can do 1- and 2-story houses, that sort of thing. But again, that's up to the, if there was a vacant lot in a subdivision and somebody came in and wanted to build a bigger house or a smaller house, we would have no control over that other than if they met the standards. So, again, the applicant, I think, could better address what they're actually going to do here.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question, just to address the concern of the member of the public that asked about the horses. I don't know if that's something that we could answer in terms of, I don't know if there's some code related to keeping the horses out.
Fencing to keep the horses out. When I was up on the site, I did see the fencing, and there is a condition on this project that when they build it, they have to put perimeter fencing in. It's open view fencing, and then they're also going to gate where the two roads stub off to the east so that the horses can't get in there. So it's probably more of an operational code enforcement type situation that should be investigated, and maybe the applicant can address that also on what they might want to do about that now, but that would be the way it would be handled because it is a condition of approval.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Commissioners, any other questions? Motion? Commissioner Stapleton.
I'll make a motion in the case of LDC 10-00030 Evans Ranch PUD. I would move to approve the, now where is it? Based on compliance with the applicable findings, and I can make the findings. I move to approve the, Hi, Commissioner Stapleton, and I would like to make a motion.
Commissioner Stapleton.
Thank you.
Can we break it down to the tentative map and the special use permits? So 2 motions, please.
In the case of LDC 14-00017 Golden Hills 2C, based on compliance with the applicable findings, and I can make the findings, I move to approve the tentative map, subject to conditions.
Commissioner Reno, I'll second that.
Okay, and we have the addition also of...
Including the amendments to the conditions.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 6-0.
Do you want me to make the second best
You
motion
go for it.
anybody ever made? Okay. In the case of LDC 14-00017 Golden Hills 2C, based on compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the special use permit subject to conditions. There was no amended conditions.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Taylor, I second that motion, and I can make all the findings.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 6-0. Good luck on the project. The next item on the agenda is TXT 14-00002, time extensions for open lot parking.
Good evening, Claudia Hansen, Planning and Engineering Manager. City Council initiated a text amendment to amend the allowed time for open lot parking lots in the downtown. The amendment before you, the changes are shown on page 14 of the ordinance. And currently, anybody who has a temporary parking lot or open lot parking lot in downtown, in which case it would be temporary, it can be allowed administratively for 3 years, and right now they have to come back every year after that for review by City Council. That has proven to be time-consuming and cumbersome. So this amendment would still have the initial 3 years, and then the property owner applicant could come back and request 5-year extensions for a maximum of 3. So total would be the initial 3 years, 3 5 years extension for a total of 18 years for a temporary parking lot in downtown. There are a few of them in downtown, the most notable one being the Washoe County Courthouse parking lot falls under the standard, but there's a few other ones in town also in downtown. So it would apply to any temporary parking lot in downtown, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Do we have anybody in the audience for public comments? I'd like to open public comments. Seeing and hearing none, I'll close public comments. Ask for disclosures from any commissioners. We have no disclosures, so commissioners, I'll bring it back to you for questions.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Weisky. Claudia, on page 14, item number 2, it's paragraph 21A2. Approval for an open lot parking lot may be granted for a period of 3 years. And then it changes it to, in B, to 5 years. Is that, do those two paragraphs coincide? What did I not read that?
A, if you look at the opening portion of A, it's for open lot parking uses in the PO, GO, PF, NC, and AC zoning districts. And then B is for the DRRC.
Okay. All right.
So different zoning districts.
Okay, why are we extending it out? Why is City Council looking to have it extended out, or staff to have it extended out for a total of 15 years, it looks like, or 18 years possibly?
Right now, it's indefinite. So right now, they can get the initial 3 years, and then they can come back every year forever. And so City Council asked that we extend that time limit to allow council to extend it up to 5 years. Staff is recommending that we cap that they can only do that 3 years. So a total of 15, 18 with the initial 3. We felt that was definitely enough. We discussed going less than that also.
And I don't disagree with you that is more than enough. If a property owner has a piece of, in my opinion, and I'm sharing an opinion right now, not a question, that may lead to more discussion, I don't particularly like the 3 5-year extensions. If a developer is a developer and they have an open parking lot and they want it to be a parking lot till they get other plans put together, a 3-year and 1 5-year extension is 8 years. I think that's more than enough time for a developer to put together a project and start construction in 8 years if they're going to do anything. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a parking lot like we have near the courthouse that may or may not meet the needs of the community because it doesn't provide enough parking. And there's other parking lots like that also. And in eight years, we're going to go through 2 rounds of city council elections. So we're going to see a lot of different thought processes. I just
for reference, the county court one, since we've used that as an example, is at 6 years right now.
Is it 6 years right now?
It's already at 6 years.
Okay. And you said that 3 years was just a number that staff started with, that's a negotiable number, the 3 extensions?
That was just a suggestion. We felt it was inappropriate to have it open-ended, so we started the discussion with 3. I think staff would probably be more comfortable with 2 5-year extensions, so it would be a total of 13 years, but at no more than 18, I would recommend.
Okay.
The 3 5-year extensions.
Right, and again, I go back to the number of election cycles that we could see and the number of different people we could see granting extensions, even staff turnovers could lead to many different ideas. But I think sometimes it's better to hold a person accountable and get them moving forward with a development project, because appear to be downtown. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm not asking questions so much as I'm having discussion.
Thank you.
No further questions either.
Commissioner Reno.
So I just want to understand, with a maximum of 5 and a cap of 3, 5 years extensions, you can't have up to 20 years? Is that 5 plus 5 3 times? That's
You would have
20.
You would have 3 for the initial administratively, and then you could have, it could go to council 3 times. You could request 3 extensions.
Yeah, the way
So
I'm
that'd
reading
be-
it, the staff believes the flexibility to allow time extensions for a maximum of 5 years with a cap of 3 5-year extensions. So I guess I'm reading that a little different. I thought it was 5 years and then 5-year extensions. I agree. I think we'll get into the discussion portion, but 18 years is enough. I think that is a lot. I just
Okay.
wanted to make a clarification there on it's 3, then 3 5s, correct?
3 years
Commissioner
and then 3
Taylor.
5s, yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Taylor.
Thank you. Claudia, I just want to have clarify. The intent of this is to put a cap on the temporary parking lots where there is none right now, correct?
Correct, to move on with the development of the property, whatever it may be. The ultimate goal it would be to have the highest and best use of the property. Open lot parking lots in a downtown are not necessarily the best use to support the downtown. A parking structure would be allowed indefinitely, obviously, or any other development on there.
And
or
a
even
permanent
starting-
parking lot could be, the applicant can come before and get a permanent parking lot that after, when they're done with this temporary parking lot.
No, and I think I discussed that with you earlier, and I was incorrect. The way the ordinance is written, open lot parking is only allowed temporarily in the downtown, in the DRRC.
But I guess the intent of this revision is so that we're saving time and money with the residents and with the staff, where you guys aren't reviewing this stuff every single year.
Correct.
And there is a cap on it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Claudia, I have a question. Standards for temporary parking lots and standards for a permanent parking lot. What's the difference?
The amount of landscaping is the key difference. The example would be the court parking lot has the perimeter trees in the sidewalk. Those are actually in boxes in the ground, so they're probably not going to last much longer in reality. But there's no internal landscaping on that parking lot, so it would be the same landscaping that you would see in any other parking lot throughout downtown. So parking landscape islands within the parking lot, perimeter landscaping around the parking would be permanent landscaping, or would be permanent parking lot.
Okay. Okay, so discussion, commissioners.
Mr. Chair,
Stapleton.
Commissioner Stapleton, thank you. To follow on the comments of Commissioner Reno and Commissioner Weisky, I think that this is a little bit of a leap to go from what this was one, they had to come back for the extension every year.
Yes.
And now it's going to every 5 years. And I understand the intent of the cap on 15 years. I think that's a lot. I agree with Commissioner Weisky, maybe something more like 8. Or as a compromise, what about, instead of jumping from 1 to 5, what about every 2 years instead of, so that way it uses less staff time and it's less of an effort, but they still have to come back with some, sort of more frequent regularity so that it doesn't become a, 5 years times, it essentially becomes a permanent parking lot, I think, the way that it's written. So maybe shorter extensions with a cap could be something I would support.
Commissioner Reno.
Commissioner Reno, I agree. I worry about lots just turning into temporary parking lots all downtown. I mean, the purpose of a downtown is to grow and to develop, and if you just have a bunch of maybe even speculation on the land and just put a parking lot and you can sit there for 20 years, I don't think that's what you want downtown, is a lot of temporary parking lots. I agree with Commissioner Stapleton. I think that having them coming back for more approvals is the right way to go. come back to us, come back to the commission, come back to the council, and ask for more time. And then it's either you need to move on, get something developed there, or likewise. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know how the rest of the commissioners feel, but I think that we don't want a lot of temporary parking lots downtown.
Commissioner Olivas, Claudia, you said this was at City Council's direction that staff is putting forth this amendment?
Yes.
Did they give you any guidance on what they were looking for?
To extend it beyond the 1 year. They felt that was too short, and staff agrees that 1 year is too short. We actually have 3 in the queue. I think on Washoe County parking lot, we have 3 reports in the queue to bring forward to council, but due to other negotiations, they've just haven't gotten to council. They can be time consuming to get to council, and if there's negotiation, if there's phasing of projects coming in, in staff's opinion, 2 years is a little too short. And if you're trying to plan out a development on a project, council didn't give us specific direction. They said to analyze it and bring it back. We felt 5 years was appropriate. I would say leaning on the 3 5s might be a little excessive on the number of them.
Okay, I was just curious as we're kind of discussing what might be appropriate, what council might have thought.
Commissioner Stapleton, what about as another alternative? It goes to City Council for approval. Is this something that could come to Planning Commission for approval? Would that make it a little less onerous in combination with, I think, a shorter renewal period than 5 years? Just a suggestion. Maybe if you can
That's a
answer why there's
possibility.
any
You can
reason,
suggest
if there's a reason why specifically it goes to council as opposed to Planning Commission for the approval of the extension, or even, I don't know if I want to suggest this, but in my ignorance, I would assume something like this would be administrative, but now that I'm thinking about it, I can see why it maybe would need a little bit more oversight or public process than just administrative approval, but.
It was originally going to council, I think just due to the nature of downtown. There's a lot of activities downtown, a lot of larger projects. Redevelopment agency in the past has been very involved in working with land acquisition and combining land to create larger projects. And I think council wanted that connection with them since they are a little bit more involved in the day-to-day review of larger projects in the downtown. And if there's a parking lot somewhere, they want to be able to, review the timeline of how long that's going to be there with future projects coming in.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Claudia, can I ask another question, please? What was the logic behind, on your side, of putting the extensions on there? The 3 year,
The 3 5 years?
Yeah, the 3 5 years. Could you do 2? What?
You could do 2. You could do any combination of them.
I guess I don't. You're the expert, so what was your logic or your team's logic to coming up with that?
For us, it would be great if we could only have the parking lot for 8 years, the 1 5 year extension, and then a project goes up. To us, that's not really realistic. The downturn in the economy over the last 5 years now, pretty much, that would have been one of the extensions, and then the parking lot would have had to been removed, or developed. So to us, just looking at development trends, I would say at least that 10-year option to give somebody the time to have the plans for a project to come in or acquire other land or figure out the phasing of a project. It really does take that long for that scale of project.
Thank you.
Claudia, Commissioner Kaufman. The real intent today, they can go indefinitely. Is that correct?
Correct, but they have to come back every year.
So the intent of this is to limit it now to a maximum of 18 years.
Correct. Yes, that's what the proposed ordinance states.
So is this retroactive to the parking lots that are out there now? I mean, they would start 18 years.
They all have the 3 years already. They're all into their extensions. The court parking lot is the one who's more
Okay.
unscheduled than any others. So that one is I think we're on our 3rd year. I think their 3rd one is due this month, actually. So we would just do one for a total of 5. So that they would be back in 2 years for a second 5. So they're already 3 years into what would be their first 5.
Okay, if we would shorten the time frame, so in other words, go from 3 5 years extension to 2 5 years extension. Say the economy hasn't developed to the point of being profitable to develop that, could they still come back, or would they have to totally abandon that parking lot? Could they, in other words, could they come back to the Planning Commission and request a variance to go another 5 years, or an extension for another 5 years, or would it be totally that they would have to abandon that parking lot?
I would want to lock it into any one option. The variance is an option. Developing a phasing program for development coming in, if they're going to develop a portion of it and then submit a phasing plan for future development. There's a number of different options, variance being one of them.
Okay. Okay, so this is kind of my comment, I guess. With these extensions and the difference in the standards from a temporary to the standards for a permanent parking lot, I almost see with each 5 years, they have to do some type of development to make it more appealing. You know,
So add a portion of structure or
so-
landscaping or
yeah,
some
or,
improvements.
landscaping, or, you know, somewhere, because again, it's almost like, hey, it's gonna be a temporary structure, but if I never develop it, I continue to have that, but it's still not appeasing to the public as what a permanent parking lot could be. So in my eyes, I don't know, it would almost mean, you know, some type of more landscaping. And exactly what you said, if the trees are in crates, you know, they get root bound, they don't live.
Well, each year, when it comes to council, they have the ability to review the site on a whole. When it came forward last year or the year before, portions of the parking lot had failed. The asphalt was actually caving in, and I think one of the trees had died. So at that point, council conditioned that they had to make those repairs, which is why we bring it back to city council to give them the option to put those conditions on it, which they have the ability to do at that time.
Yeah, I can see every year coming back with as much as the council has to deal with. I'm just not sure 18 years I agree with. So for more public comments, or
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Weisky, earlier I said, you know, the initial 3 years and then 1 5-year extension seems appropriate with being a total of 8 years. Maybe an option is to start with that. Your initial application is for 3 years. You can get a one-time 5-year extension with whatever upgrades City Council deems appropriate at that time. A second 5-year option, and you bring the parking lot up to current parking and landscape standards. If you want the additional 5 years, that's a total of 13 years for a landowner to prepare, but we as the city get to look at a temporary parking lot that is aesthetically very pleasing and would meet the standards of downtown and the direction of new development in the downtown area, or in any other part of the town as far as that goes. I trying not to be specific and address one specific address. There are several of these around town, and who knows, somebody might start knocking down some old hotels or motels around here and wanting to turn them into temporary parking lots until they can sell their dirt off over the next few years, and this might make it a little more aesthetically pleasing to the community. It's just an option to consider.
Can I ask a question about that proposal, Commissioner Stapleton, for the record? Commissioner Weisky suggested after the first 5 years, bringing it up to the standards for the asphalt and the landscaping. What would those be, and would they not be required to do that already? Or
The landscaping is not, full landscaping is not required, just street trees for the temporary parking lot in downtown.
Okay, okay.
Which is why you don't see any interior landscaping on that one, or Sienna.
Okay, thanks. I like that proposal. I would lean, though, still that towards having a little bit more frequent oversight than 5 years might serve us a little better. That's 10 years with one visit back to the city, and a lot could happen in 10 years. We hope a lot will happen in 10 years. And maybe we want a little more frequent oversight or opportunity to look at what is happening there. So depending on what the other commissioners think, I like Commissioner Weisky's proposal, but I would also lean towards something with where the the period of time is something more like 2 or 3 years. And then if the oversight of it was, or the renewal was in, smaller pieces of time where you had to come back, then for me, it would justify maybe more flexibility on the cap on the other end, because you have the opportunity to see it more.
Commissioner Stapleton, may I comment on that, Commissioner Weisky? You would have an oversight review at year 3, because you would have, that's when the property owner would come in and request the first 5-year extension. Then you would have one at year 8, another review, and at that point, that's when they would have to bring it up to permanent parking standards, permanent landscaping, that type of thing. So between years 8 and 13, you would have a fresh-looking parking lot at that time. So really, there's been 2 oversights, but one of the things that staff, specifically Claudia, said when she first started with this agenda item tonight was what City Council was looking at is trying to alleviate some of the burden on staff for annual reviews or short period reviews where it's taking up a lot of their time, and they're trying to free up some of staff's time to do other things. So, and I don't know that 5 years is the right number. Maybe it's 4 years. Maybe it's 2 4-year after the first 3-year. We can make the recommendation whatever we want to City Council. I believe this is just what staff gave us to start with, and then City Council can modify it and massage it as they want to when they get it next month or whenever. But hopefully that explained a little bit of the time frame that I was thinking of when I came up with that wild idea.
Commissioner Stapleton, can I just respond to that? That does make more sense, and just to play devil's advocate and to sort of talk a little bit about where you're going, would then that run the risk of, if in that third renewal of the last 5 years, of years 8 to 13, then it creates some permanent improvements, but does that then run the risk of turning this into a permanent parking lot, which is, I think, what we don't want to go towards by adding more permanent improvements? So just to throw that out there.
That was the intent originally of only requiring the street trees, because those are going to be required no matter what is going on the lot. So that was why we initially removed the requirement for interior landscaping.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Reno, I kind of agree with Commissioner Stapleton here. Do we want parking lots, permanent parking lots downtown? So I like the idea, Commissioner Weisky, but I think that extensions would be good. And even, I guess, so let's say they have 2 5-year extensions. They can still come back even at that time for a variance to extend it further. So it's not like it takes it off the table if there's some, the economy's down or something's happening. But I think we do need to limit them and say, look, you need to move on. This was a temporary parking lot, develop this lot. That's my thoughts.
Commissioner Weisky, what if it was written so that, and Claudia, tell me if I'm going out of what city would have control on, at the end of the second 5-year extension, that it can no longer be a parking lot. I mean, I hate to use the word sunsets, but that's a word that's used a lot in writing different laws and ordinances, that it sunsets, and at the end of those 2 5 years and your initial 3-year, that's 13 years, you come in with a phasing project and you start the development like you discussed earlier, Commissioner Reno, and like Claudia discussed earlier, that, okay, at this point we start as a planning commission, start approving projects, and the developer starts to make permanent improvements, that it cannot, at the end of that second 5-year extension, remain as a parking lot, permanent or otherwise. Claudia, if you'd like to jump in on any of that, I would appreciate it.
Sure. I think maybe what would help on this is adding an intent statement of what the goal is, of why we have this time limit in there. So in 10 or 15 years, whatever it is, when they come back, the future planning commissions and city councils see that that's the purpose for it. So I think adding an intent statement, and then requiring, if you go with 3 5s or 3 4s or whatever it is, at the end of the second one, requiring a phasing plan or development schedule to get into that third extension. That you could put that in there. That would be reasonable.
Okay, I would like to see something like that. I can think of 2 temporary parking lots in downtown area right now that are not exclusively on South Virginia Street, where the property owners didn't go in and remove the subgrade material that's there, properly base their property, and then pave it and do a regular base and pave section. Whatever dirt was there got covered with 2 inches of asphalt, barely got graded. I don't know how they got the asphalt to drain, period. And it's striped, and that could be sitting there for 13 years. I would hate to see it there for 23 years. And because there's a lot of people that are putting good money into small, medium, and large projects downtown and all over town, midtown, where parking areas are needed, but not permanent temporary parking. So I'm leaning more to shorter periods of time with improvements that look good while it's there, with a development clause or paragraph or intent at the end of the second time extension or third time extension, whatever we agree on. That's kind of where I'm leaning.
Claudia, I think, and I don't know, the statement here, it says the parking lot does not help to meet this long-term vision of downtown, is where I'm kind of having some problems with the long term of this. If there was a way to support it and phase it, if we could make some recommendations, if you could come back with some recommendations, and I don't know if this is possible, to maybe shorten that time with some phasing where we can get closer to the vision of what downtown is and the goal, where we're not having these 18-year parking lots or people abandoning them after 5 years if they can't turn them into a permanent parking lot either. We don't want a whole bunch of, like you said, Commissioner Weisky, bad parking lots that are left there because they don't have the money or the development or the people coming in to support a permanent parking lot.
I can bring some options back.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Weisky, if at some point, maybe this evening, what we commissioners should consider is a motion for a continuation of this agenda item to next month so that staff can bring something back. Maybe staff would contact us individually and get our ideas, figure out how to put it into what staff feels would work, and then discuss it at our January meeting before sending it on to council. I think it might be better for staff at least to be able to get a good idea of what we're looking for, and it might be easier to send on to city council.
So Claudia, do you kind of understand where I think everybody's coming from?
I do, yes.
Okay, that 18 years are probably, we all kind of agree is probably too long.
Okay.
So,
Commissioner Olivas, I guess one thing I'm wondering, I mean, you could come back in a few years with another text amendment anyways, really, so this isn't anything set in stone, so I hate to spend too much time beating this up too much because there's a lot of ways around this if council wants to change it. So I guess if everybody wants to have Claudia come back with something else, that's fine, but
I'll be here anyway. So
you'll be here anyways. I hate to spend too much time beating up something that's not set in stone anyways.
Mr. Chairman, maybe when Claudia comes back, if we do that continuance, give us some examples of what we have out there and maybe some locations of where these lots are. That would be good to see in a report, to read up and even visit some of those sites to really understand the issue with a temporary parking lot compared to a permanent parking lot.
and I guess too, how long they've been temporary.
Okay.
And with that, I need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to what Commissioner Weisky said earlier.
Go ahead, Commissioner Taylor.
To bring a motion to continue this item to next month at our meeting. For Claudia to come back and bring us some examples of parking lots and how long they've been there and some options for us.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Weisky, I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 6-0. Thank you. Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Report.
We do not have a meeting this month in December. We have a meeting coming up next month in January. I haven't seen an agenda, so I can't give anybody any highlights of what they would miss if they didn't come visit us.
Okay. Next on the agenda, staff announcements.
Claudia Hansen, Planning and Engineering Manager. Going back to Truckee Meadows Regional Planning, I'm not sure it's been reported on yet since the last meeting, but the rollback of the SOI, have we talked about that? So the master plan amendment that you saw for the transit corridors, there were a few parcels in there that were being removed from the sphere of influence in the city of Reno, and that was approved by the Regional Planning Commission and is being forwarded to the Regional Governing Board for approval of that. So that has gone one more step there. And related to that, the The rest of that master plan amendment will be going to city council next week for review, and then that will be forwarded to regional planning. I guess the most notable action taken by city council on a previous planning commission item would be Southeast Connector was approved last night 4-3 by city council. And staff will be forwarding that to regional planning tomorrow or Monday for review for a project of regional significance. And one other announcement is the RTC's Transit Summit is tomorrow. Hopefully we see some of you there. It is an all-day event, 7:30 to 4:30, I believe, at the Convention Center.
Okay, thank you. Next item is Commissioner's suggestion for future agenda items. Commissioner Stapleton.
Commissioner Stapleton, I have a question for my fellow commissioners. It could be just me, but when we were looking at the Evans Ranch, I was confused or just didn't have a whole lot of background on the impact fees and how the fees went for that, and I sort of studied that in the staff report. If anybody else is where I am, I would be interested in having a training or some more information on that. If I could be the only one, then I'm cool. I'll just, work to get together with staff.
I'm glad you asked that because you're going to know a whole bunch about impact fees in the near future. We are reviewing those, working with some staff from the city manager's office, and that's going to be part of the amendment to the Public Services Facilities Infrastructure Plan. And a large portion of that is impact fees, and you will have a presentation on that in the next couple of months.
Can I ask a question during this agenda item right now of Claudia?
If it's about putting something on a future agenda.
It's totally not. I'll ask after the meeting. Thanks.
Okay.
Anybody else? And then, Michelle, we're going to bring up the calendar for 2014 on the next agenda.
Chairman, Commissioner Reno, yeah, for future agenda items, we talk about this vision for downtown, and I know that there's these plans, the Cornish plan, there's other plans sitting out there of master plans for downtown. Maybe a presentation on what the intent was way back in the day of what downtown wanted to look like, what it wanted to look like. And I know we're not there, but could you give a presentation on that?
Sure, we can do that. We could probably do the visions of the past and the current vision.
There you go. That'd be great.
Comparison of the two. We'd be happy to do that.
Christmas past, present, and future.
This Commissioner Stapleton, on this agenda item, the question I was going to ask Claudia does have to do with this. You mentioned the Public Facilities and Services Plan. Is that something that comes to us as a future agenda item or something we work on? What happens? How does that work?
It will come before you, and you will have a more active role in that, and we will present that to you in the near future. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is public comments. And we do have a guest in our audience. I know, Will, you didn't fill out a public comment, but could you come up and give us a little explanation why you're here and introduce yourself, your name, and
my name is Will Turnier, and I'm here from Reno High School. My AP government class, I have to get public meeting hours in for a grade, and so I came to the public meeting last night about the Southeast Connector and was here for like 4 hours. So back here again tonight, and probably be here again next week. And I really enjoy coming here, actually. I find it very interesting to see the government in action firsthand.
well, good. Thank you. And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, hey, Will, I need you to fill out a public comment sheet, too. You didn't know that was coming, did you? Okay, no. Anybody else would like to make public comments? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close those. And a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Aye.
Aye. What?
Wait, could we have a second?
He seconded it. That's why I said aye.
Second.
That's Commissioner Taylor. And all in favor? Say aye. 6-0. Everybody have a Merry Christmas.
Was there a bet on this?